After completing this lesson, you'll be able to understand phases, work with phases, and set phase and phase filters. The objective domains covered are 3.3a, use phase filters. Construction phasing is very important to help understand the correct sequence of construction, the required materials, and various different assets that are required. Revit can create construction phases and assign elements and parts to each phase. Documentation can then be produced to show each phase. Phase filters and graphic overrides control how the differing phases appear in each drawing view. Go ahead and open up the model 033, working with phases. The model opens up in a 3D view. This particular 3D view that we're looking at the minute has a section box applied. So I've used a section box to hide all the levels above that currently don't have a phase associated with elements or parts. All of the elements and parts we see in the screen here have phases applied. So for example, if I select this tunnel here, you can see in the properties palette that we have a phase created, which is 0, existing tunnel, and it's not demolished. Let's have a look at another example. Let's select this floor slab here. And once again, you'll see the phase created here is phase 10, and again, it's not demolished. So all of these elements have phases assigned to them. Currently now, we don't have a selection set applied, so the properties palette is displaying the properties of the active view. So of course, you'll see that we have things such as view scale, detail level, and so on. Right down the bottom of the properties palette, we have phasing, and you'll notice here that we have current active phase, phase 1, piling. However, the display doesn't look any different, and the reason for this is because we have no phase filters currently operational. Let's now set a phase filter. So here, I'm going to ask Revit to show anything that's newly constructed and its previous phase. So of course, you'll see here that the newly constructed items, which are the piles, are shown in blue, and the previous phase is shown in grey. Let's now change the active phase. So the active phase now is phase 1. Let's now have a look at phase 2. And of course, you'll now see at phase 2, we can see the slabs cast, but of course now the piles and the tunnel are on the previous phase. Let's jump ahead and perhaps look at 4A, steel columns. So again here, you can see we have some kickers cast and also our steel columns erected here, but everything else is in a previous phase. So let's now take a look at the setup of these phases. Select the Manage ribbon, and here you'll notice we have phases. Let's go ahead and select phases. The phasing dialog box opens, and you'll note here we have 3 tabs: project phases, phase filters, and graphic overrides. So the project phases are showing me all of the phases that I've set up in this active project. For example, if I'd like to add another one in here, perhaps phase 14, you'll notice here we can insert after or before the selection set. So here I could insert a new one, and in here I can just type in a name. So in here we might have first floor kickers, and we can also then present a description for this as well. So I could just copy and paste perhaps in there and click OK, and then that would create that new phase. I could then assign that to different elements in the project. The next tab we can look at is phase filters. So you'll see here that we've only currently got 2 phase filters in this particular project. I either show everything if nothing is overridden, or here I can show a newly built object and the previous phase. Now you'll note here with this example we have show new and previous, so the new object is overridden, the previous set elements are also overridden, anything that's demolished or is a temporary structure is currently not displayed. Finally, let's select graphic overrides. So here we have those phase statuses. So you can see here we have the existing status. Currently in line work, that's going to show as grey. And you can see it's using the material here, phase existing. This particular material I've made grey. You can then see we have our new phase. And in here, I've overridden this to appear blue. And again, the material is set to phase new. And I've created the material here again to be blue. Let's now have a look at creating a new phase filter. So perhaps what I want to do, rather than actually seeing the existing objects that have previously constructed in previous phases, I might just want to isolate the newly built components. So let's go ahead here and create a new phase filter. So here we can type in show new. So newly created objects, we're going to use the overridden style. So you may remember that's going to appear shaded in blue. And also if I use a hidden line, it will come out in a blue hidden line outline. Existing phases are not displayed. Demolished is not displayed. And temporary is not displayed. Let's go ahead and select OK to our phasing dialog box. And now you'll notice in all of the views, if I go to phase filters, I have that new phase filter, show new. And of course here, it will only display newly created elements. So let's now step through some more phases. So if we go to phase 4, which is the column base plates, here I just get displayed the column base plate itself. Let's go back and look at the basement walls. So again here, I can see my grade beams and my pile caps and the kickers for the columns. Finally, when creating documentation of your phases, you'll need to duplicate the views and then create new phase filters. So for example, here you can see that I have a view 3D phase model. I'm going to go ahead and rename this, and I'll call this one phase 3. We'll then go ahead and duplicate this view. And here I can rename this one. Let's call this one phase 2. Okay, so for the properties of our new view, phase 2, we can set the phase to phase 2. And then finally, we'll duplicate again. And here, we'll rename this one and we'll call this phase 1. And of course, we'll set our active phase in the properties palette to phase 1. So if we want to present these onto some drawing sheets now, of course, we can come down to our sheet list. And you'll see here, for example, I've got a sheet, phase 1 build. And we can then drag and drop our 3D view, phase 1, onto the drawing sheet. Now, of course, when we create schedules, we can also incorporate a phase in our schedule. So you notice here that I have a schedule set up for our phase 1 materials. And of course, I can then position that on the same drawing sheet. So this just tells me we need concrete and this much concrete for this particular construction phase. Let's do one more. So let's go ahead and open up phase 2 build. So again, I can go and find my phase 2 3D model, drag and drop this onto the drawing sheet. Then we can go and find our phase 2 material takeoff and again position that one onto the drawing sheet. And of course, once again, if we wanted to see previous phases within our drawing, we can select the view. And of course, we can now change our phase filter to the previous one we had, which was show new phase and previous construction.